The chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of silver metal orbiting the neutral world below. Inside, representatives from 12 species sat in their designated sections, each area modified to suit their specific needs. The Catharan flickered like living flames in their energy containment fields. The Zephyri's crystalline forms refracted the chamber's lights into rainbow patterns. The ancient librarians stood silent, their four eyes blinking in different rhythms as they processed information. But today, none of them looked calm. The holographic display in the center showed the problem. A spreading darkness consumed star after star like ink bleeding through paper, the Viridian Cascade, they called it. 3 months ago, it had swallowed a single asteroid. Now 17 star systems had vanished into that hungry void. The quantum anchors failed, the Zephyri representative announced, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. Our greatest engineering project in 2,000 years, and it lasted 4 minutes before the cascade consumed it. A Catharan floated forward, his light dimming with sadness. We sent our finest minds. They believed they could channel the anomaly's energy, redirect it safely. He paused. None returned. Their essence was scattered across dimensions we cannot perceive. The librarian spoke next, all 4 voices merging into one haunting sound. We searched our archives. 1 million years of recorded knowledge. Every crisis, every solution, every failure. Nothing matches this. The cascade operates outside known physical laws. Panic rippled through the chamber. Representatives shouted over each other, proposing desperate plans. Evacuate entire sectors. Abandon 3 galactic arms. Build a new council elsewhere far from the spreading darkness. In the back corner, the human delegation sat quietly. Ambassador Sarah Chen watched the chaos with dark, observant eyes. She was a small woman compared to most species present, dressed in a simple gray suit. Next to her, Captain Marcus Webb studied the holographic display, his military uniform crisp despite the 3-day emergency session. Dr. Yuki Tanaka scribbled notes on a datapad, occasionally glancing up at the failed solution reports. The youngest species should speak, one representative said, sarcasm dripping from their translation. Perhaps the humans have wisdom we lack? A few species made sounds that translated to laughter. Humans had joined the Galactic Council only 30 years ago. They had barely explored beyond their local cluster. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. What could they possibly offer? Ambassador Chen stood slowly. The chamber didn't quiet immediately. She waited, hands clasped behind her back until curiosity finally silenced the room. Do you have a solution, human? The council speaker asked, trying to sound patient. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Someone whispered. More laughter. Chen pulled up her datapad and studied it for a moment. I see 12 attempted solutions. Each one failed within hours or days. The Catharan tried energy manipulation. The Zephyri built physical barriers. The Raxians attempted temporal displacement. The librarians searched for historical precedent. She looked up. Everyone tried to stop it directly. Of course, the Zephyri representative snapped. What else would we do? Redirect it. Contain it. Adapt to it. Chen's voice remained calm. You're treating this like an enemy to defeat. What if it's a problem to manage? Manage? The Catharan dimmed further. It consumes matter and energy indiscriminately. It tears holes in reality itself. How does one manage such a thing? I don't know yet, Chen admitted. But I know giving up. The council speaker raised one appendage. Ambassador Chen, we appreciate your optimism. However, 12 advanced civilizations have exhausted their options. Humanity, with respect, lacks the technology and experience to succeed where we have failed. More murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. The Zephyri representative added, Perhaps humans should focus on evacuation. Your worlds lie far from the cascade's current path. You have time to flee. Chen looked at Captain Webb. He gave a slight nod. She looked at Dr. Tanaka, who stopped writing and met her gaze. The physicist shrugged, a very human gesture that meant both uncertainty and determination. The ambassador turned back to the council. Fine, I'll handle it. Silence dropped like a stone. Excuse me? The speaker said. Humanity will handle it, Chen repeated. We're activating Protocol Ganymede. As of this moment, we're taking jurisdiction over the Cascade crisis. You cannot simply, we can, and we are. Chen pulled out a communications device. Captain Webb, send the signal. Webb touched his wrist console. Somewhere in human space, relay stations began broadcasting a coded message, a message every human ship, station, and colony had been programmed to recognize since the early days of space exploration. "This is madness," the librarian said. "You will fail like the others. You will waste lives and resources." "Probably," Chen agreed, "but you've already decided to abandon these sectors. You're planning evacuation routes. You're writing off billions of potential lives because you tried everything you know." She walked toward the central display. "Humans are good at exactly one thing. When everyone else says something is impossible, we say fine and do it anyway. This is not bravery, human. This is suicide." Chen smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "Maybe, but someone has to try something different. You see an unstoppable force. We see a problem with an unknown solution." She turned to face the entire council. "Evacuate your people from the affected sectors. Give us 6 months. If we fail, you're no worse off than you are now. And if you succeed," the speaker asked quietly, "then the council owes us a very large favor." Chen headed toward the exit, her delegation following. At the doorway, she paused. "Oh, and speaker, you might want to monitor human fleet movements. Things are about to get interesting." As the humans left, the council erupted into argument. Some called it human arrogance. Others called it desperation. A few wondered if maybe, just maybe, the youngest species might see something the ancient ones had missed. In orbit, the first human ships began arriving. Mining vessels, colony transports, military cruisers, research stations detaching from their moorings. They came from every corner of human space, converging on coordinates that would bring them to the edge of the Viridian Cascade. The great galactic lockdown had begun. The message reached Earth's moon base first. Admiral Patricia Costa read it 3 times before triggering the alarm. Within minutes, every human facility across 30 star systems received the same transmission. Protocol Ganymede was active. No one had expected it to ever be used. It was the plan for impossible situations, the contingency for when everything else failed. Every human captain, every colony administrator, every ship AI had the protocol buried in their core systems. Most had forgotten it existed. Now those dormant instructions came alive. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UHSF Determination, watching his tactical display fill with green markers. Each one represented a human vessel changing course, abandoning current missions, heading toward a single destination. "Sir, the mining freighter Dusty Prospect is 3 months from port," his first officer reported. "They're turning around. Captain says they'll be at the rendezvous in 4 days. The colony ship New Horizons has altered course," communications added. They were heading to establish a settlement. 20,000 colonists on board. "They're coming too," Webb nodded. This was Protocol Ganymede. When humanity called, everyone answered. No exceptions. No debate. "Science Station Kepler 442 is detaching from orbit," another officer called out. "They're bringing their entire research facility." On the view screen, space filled with ships. Vessels of every size and purpose moved in a coordinated stream toward the edge of the Viridian Cascade. Military destroyers flew alongside civilian transports. Science vessels traveled with ore haulers. Even the generation ship Persistence, crawling between stars for 70 years, had altered its centuries-long journey to join the fleet. On Concordia Prime, alien observers watched in confusion. A Zephyri engineer studied the fleet composition. "This makes no sense. They bring mining equipment. Construction drones? Why do they have entertainment modules?" "Look at this," her colleague said, highlighting a cargo manifest. "Food shipments. Massive quantities. Medical supplies. Recreational facilities." She tilted her crystalline head. "They're preparing for a long deployment. But with what weapons? What technology? I see fabrication plants, raw material processors, hydrogen scoops." The engineer's light patterns flickered with confusion. "They're bringing logistics." At the edge of the cascade, Dr. Yuki Tanaka's research vessel arrived first. She immediately began scanning the phenomenon, but not in the way previous species had done. Instead of studying the cascade itself, she pulled up every failed attempt from the last 3 months. "Computer, analyze all 12 solutions. Show me commonalities." Data streams filled her screens. Energy manipulation, physical barriers, temporal technology, dimensional anchors. Each attempt had tried to stop the cascade through different means, but Tanaka saw the pattern. They all pushed against it, she muttered. Every single one tried to halt its expansion directly. Her assistant, a young physicist named Chen Mosi, looked over her shoulder. Isn't that the logical approach? Maybe. Tanaka pulled up sensor data from the Cascade's behavior. But look at this. When the Catharan tried energy manipulation, the Cascade expanded faster. When the Zephyri built their barriers, it spread around them within hours. Every direct opposition made it stronger, like it was feeding on resistance. Exactly. Tanaka started running simulations. What if we don't try to stop it? What if we guide it? Ambassador Chen arrived on the command ship Unity within 2 days. The vessel served as the coordination center for the growing fleet. Hundreds of ships now surrounded the Cascade's perimeter, maintaining careful distance. Chen stood in the operations center, watching holographic displays show ship positions, resource allocations, and construction progress. It looked like controlled chaos. Ships moved in seemingly random patterns. Construction began on structures without clear purpose. Supply lines formed and reformed as needs changed. The Galactic Council had observers watching everything, sending constant requests for explanation. Ambassador, the Council demands a briefing on your strategy, the communications officer reported. Tell them we're busy, Chen replied, not looking away from the displays. They're insisting. Then tell them we'll explain when we're done. Chen moved to the tactical station. Captain Webb, status report. Webb pulled up a grid. We have 8,000 ships on station. Construction crews are building the anchor network. Mining teams are processing asteroids for raw materials. Science teams are analyzing the Cascade's behavior patterns. Casualties? None yet. We're maintaining safe distance. Good. Keep it that way. Chen watched as another wave of ships arrived. How long until the anchor network is ready? 72 hours for the first ring. If it works, it'll work, Dr. Tanaka said, joining them. I've identified the Cascade's movement patterns. It's not random. It follows paths of specific matter types. Ambassador Chen looked at the physicist. Explain. Tanaka pulled up her data. The Cascade consumed 17 star systems, but not uniformly. It avoided certain stellar types. It lingered in regions with high metal content. It's not just destroying matter randomly. It's selective, Chen said. Selective implies choice. I think it's more like, Tanaka struggled for the word, appetite. It prefers certain materials. Webb leaned forward. Can we use that? Maybe. If we can identify what it wants most, we might be able to lead it away from inhabited systems. That's phase 2, Chen said. First, we contain it. Stop the spread. Then we figure out how to redirect it. On Concordia Prime, the Galactic Council watched the human fleet with growing bewilderment. The librarians had assigned their best analysts to understand human strategy, but the patterns made no sense. They're building structures around the Cascade, one analyst reported. But not defensive barriers. These are more like navigation markers. They're processing asteroids at an incredible rate, another added, converting raw materials into standard construction components. The efficiency is remarkable, but we still don't understand the purpose. The council speaker studied the human fleet. They're not attacking. They're not fleeing. What are they doing? No one had an answer. On the Unity, Ambassador Chen prepared for her first galaxy-wide broadcast. She stood before the communication array, knowing billions across 12 species would hear her words. This is Ambassador Sarah Chen of the United Human Space Federation. As of now, the sectors surrounding the Viridian Cascade are under human jurisdiction. All inhabited worlds in the affected regions should begin orderly evacuation. Transport will be provided if needed. She paused. To the Galactic Council, we thank you for your previous efforts. We've learned from your attempts. Now please give us room to work. The Cascade will be contained. You sound confident, Webb said after the transmission ended. Chen smiled slightly. I'm terrified. But everyone out there needs to believe we know what we're doing. Do we? We're about to find out. Outside, the human fleet continued its work. Ships moved in precise patterns. Construction continued without pause. Supply lines stretched across light years, bringing materials and personnel to the edge of darkness. The great galactic lockdown was fully underway. 47 star systems were about to be sealed off from the rest of the galaxy, and humanity was about to do something the galaxy had never seen before: treat a universe-ending threat like an engineering problem. The anchor network went live on schedule. 72 hours after Ambassador Chen's broadcast, 8,000 human ships activated their reality anchors simultaneously. The devices created a web of stable spacetime around the Viridian Cascade, not trying to push it back, but simply marking boundaries. On the Unity's bridge, everyone watched the telemetry. Dr. Tanaka monitored quantum fluctuations. Captain Webb tracked ship positions. Ambassador Chen stood silent, hands gripped behind her back. Anchor points 1 through 3,000 stable, an officer reported. 4,000 through 6,000 stable. The cascade rippled at the edge of the network. For a moment it seemed to test the boundaries, pressing against the stable spacetime like a hand against a window. 7,000 through 8,000 stable. The officer continued. All anchor points holding. Expansion rate? Chen asked. Slowing, Tanaka reported, not quite believing her instruments. It's not stopping, but the rate of expansion is dropping. 60% slower than previous measurements. Webb exhaled slowly. It's working. Phase 1 is working, Chen corrected. Now comes the hard part. The hard part meant maintaining the network 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The reality anchors consumed enormous power. Ships had to rotate in shifts, replacing vessels that needed to recharge. Supply lines brought fuel cells, replacement parts, and fresh crews. The human fleet settled into a rhythm. 3 shifts rotating every 8 hours. Maintenance teams working constantly. Supply convoys arriving like clockwork. It looked chaotic to outside observers, but beneath the apparent disorder lay precise coordination. A Catharan observer ship approached the perimeter on day 5. The energy being transmitted a request to speak with human leadership. Ambassador Chen, the Catharan want to help, communications reported. They're offering to supplement the anchor network with their energy manipulation technology. Chen considered this. Tell them we appreciate the offer, but they need to stay back from the worksite. They're insisting they can reduce the power requirements. I understand. Tell them thank you, but no. Chen pulled up a tactical display. Their energy signatures might interfere with the anchor calibration. We can't risk it. The Catharan weren't offended, just confused. They'd offered assistance and humans had politely declined. It didn't match their understanding of how species in crisis should behave. On day 8, reality anchor point 2847 failed. The structure collapsed under quantum stress, creating a gap in the network. Alarms screamed across the fleet as the cascade began expanding through the opening. All ships, emergency protocol Delta, Captain Webb ordered. Ships scrambled into new positions. Within 6 minutes, 3 vessels had formed a temporary anchor point, closing the gap. Permanent replacement en route, an officer reported. 12 minutes to position. The cascade? Chen asked. Contained, Tanaka said, checking her sensors. We lost anchor point 2847, but the temporary fix is holding. Webb studied the incident report. The anchor failed because of unexpected quantum fluctuations. We didn't account for resonance effects between anchor points. Update the algorithms, Chen ordered. Adjust spacing on all anchors to prevent resonance. That means recalculating 8,000 positions, someone said. So recalculate. We have 17 hours before the next shift rotation. Get it done, the fleet adjusted. Ships moved to new positions. Engineers updated software. By the next shift change, the entire network had been recalibrated. The Galactic Council observers watched in amazement as humanity adapted its entire strategy in less than a day. On day 12, a supply convoy ran into trouble. A freighter's engine failed halfway to the perimeter. It carried critical replacement parts and food supplies for 3,000 crew members. The freighter's captain, a woman named Rodriguez, sent a distress call. Unity, this is Dusty Prospect. Main drive is dead. We're adrift. Repairs will take 48 hours minimum. Before Webb could respond, 24 ships altered course. Dusty Prospect, this is mining vessel Stone Hauler. We're 3 hours from your position. We'll tow you. Prospect, this is science vessel Newton. We have spare engine components. Transmitting specifications now. Prospect mess ship Hungry Bear here. We're rerouting to intercept. We'll transfer food supplies to cover your delivery. Webb watched it happen in real time. No orders given. No central coordination. Humans just saw a problem and moved to fix it. Within 8 hours, the Dusty Prospect was under tow. Repairs were underway and supplies had been redistributed through 3 other ships. How did they coordinate that? A Zephyr engineer asked, studying the communications logs. There was no command structure. No designated authority. They just helped. Her colleague examined the data. Look at this. The stone hauler was off shift, heading to resupply. They delayed their own rest to help. The Newton had those parts in their emergency stock. They gave them away without compensation. This doesn't follow any logical resource management protocol. It's inefficient, the first engineer said, but she didn't sound certain. Is it? The prospect will be operational in 18 hours instead of 48. Supplies were delivered on time. No one went hungry. Perhaps human inefficiency is actually efficient? On day 15, the cascade surged. Some unknown trigger caused it to pulse outward, testing every anchor point simultaneously. Alarms screamed across the fleet. All anchors under stress, Tanaka reported. Quantum stability dropping. If we lose coherence, increase power to all anchor points, Webb ordered. Emergency reserves now. Every human ship diverted power to their anchors. Lights dimmed. Non-essential systems shut down. For 10 minutes, 8,000 vessels held the line with everything they had. The cascade pushed. The anchors held. The network strained but didn't break. When the surge finally ended, 3 ships had burned out their primary power systems. 138 crew members had radiation exposure from overloaded reactors. Medical ships rushed to provide treatment while replacement vessels moved into position, and the network held. Damage report, Chen requested. 3 ships need major repairs, Webb said. 138 injuries, all treatable. No fatalities, he paused. We held. Barely, Chen said. What triggered the surge? Tanaka was already analyzing. I'm seeing a pattern. The cascade surged when we completed the network's outer ring. I think it was responding to being fully contained. It's aware? I don't know. But it's definitely not just a random phenomenon. Ambassador Chen studied the cascade on her displays. The darkness seemed to pulse, almost like breathing. What are you? She whispered. On Concordia Prime, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. The librarians presented their analysis of human methods. They are succeeding where we failed, the librarian representative stated. The cascade's expansion has slowed by 78%. No star systems have been lost since the human lockdown began. But how? The council speaker asked. Their technology is inferior. Their understanding of quantum mechanics is primitive. How are they doing this? They adapt, the librarian said simply. When Anchor Point 2847 failed, they recalibrated 8,000 positions in 17 hours. When supplies were threatened, they redistributed resources without central command. When the cascade surged, they held the line through sheer determination. That's not a strategy. The Zephyri representative objected. That's chaos. Perhaps, the librarian agreed. Or perhaps humans have learned something we forgot. When faced with the impossible, they don't calculate odds or seek perfect solutions. They simply refuse to give up. Back at the perimeter, Ambassador Chen received reports from all sectors. The lockdown was complete. 47 star systems were sealed behind the human network. The cascade was contained, but containment was just the beginning. Now came the really difficult part. Now they had to figure out what the cascade actually was and what to do with it. Week 3 of the lockdown brought questions that made the Galactic Council think humans had lost their minds. Dr. Tanaka stood before Ambassador Chen and Captain Webb, presenting her analysis. Behind her, holographic displays showed the cascades, behavioral patterns over 21 days of observation. It's not random, Tanaka explained. The cascade consumes matter, yes, but with clear preferences. It moves toward iron-rich asteroids faster than silicon-based ones. It lingers in regions with high metallic content. It avoids certain gas compositions. So it has taste, Webb said dryly, in a manner of speaking. Tanaka pulled up comparison data. I analyzed what it consumed versus what it ignored. There's a pattern, a preference hierarchy. Chen studied the data. You're suggesting we can predict its movement. Better than that. Tanaka's eyes gleamed with the excitement of discovery. I think we can guide it. Explain. If we place the right materials in the right locations, the cascade will naturally move toward them. We don't fight it. We lead it. Webb frowned. You want to feed the thing that's eating the galaxy? I want to control where it goes, Tanaka corrected. Right now, it's spreading based on what's naturally available. But if we give it a path of least resistance using materials, it prefers we can direct it away from inhabited systems. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Do it. Start with small tests. If it works, we expand the program. The first test used a single dead moon, deliberately placed in the cascade's path. The moon was iron-rich, exactly the composition Tanaka's data suggested the cascade preferred. The cascade reached the moon within 6 hours. Instead of flowing around it, the darkness concentrated there, consuming the satellite in minutes. Then it paused, as if satisfied. It worked, Tanaka whispered. It actually worked. Scale it up, Chen ordered. Over the next week, human mining ships began a program that horrified alien observers. They deliberately sacrificed asteroids, dead planets, and stellar debris to the cascade. But not randomly. Each sacrifice was carefully placed, creating a path leading away from inhabited space. A Zephyri observation ship transmitted frantically to Concordia Prime. The humans are feeding it. They're helping the anomaly. The council called an emergency session. Ambassador Chen attended via holographic transmission. Explain your actions, the council speaker demanded. You're providing matter to the very threat you're supposed to contain. We're not providing matter, Chen replied calmly. We're offering choices. The cascade will consume matter regardless. We're simply ensuring it consumes matter that doesn't include inhabited worlds. This is madness, the Catharan representative said. You're training it like some kind of pet. Exactly, Chen agreed. We're teaching it to follow a path we control. The council erupted in protest. Species that had existed for millions of years couldn't comprehend the human approach. You fought threats. You destroyed them or fled from them. You didn't negotiate with cosmic anomalies. But the data didn't lie. The cascade was moving. Slowly, steadily. It followed the trail of carefully placed materials, moving away from the galactic arm where billions lived. On day 24, something went wrong. A human calculation error placed a sacrificial asteroid too close to an inhabited system. The cascade surged toward it faster than predicted, suddenly threatening a colony world with 3 million Raxian inhabitants. Emergency evacuation, Webb ordered. All ships intercept course now. The human fleet moved as one. Every available ship raced toward the threatened system. They arrived to find the cascade already approaching the colony world's outer planets. We need to redirect it, Tanaka said urgently. Create a stronger attraction elsewhere. How? Webb demanded. We don't have time to move another asteroid. Then we use our ships. Silence filled the bridge. You want to sacrifice ships? Chen asked quietly. 3, maybe 4. Filled with the materials the cascade wants most. We detonate them at a safe distance, creating an irresistible target. Chen looked at Webb. He met her gaze and nodded slowly. Call for volunteers, Chen said. No one gets ordered to do this. The call went out. 300 ships responded within minutes. Chen selected 3 vessels, small, fast courier ships with minimal crew. 9 people total. Captain Sarah Martinez commanded one ship. She transmitted to the Unity. This is courier ship Swift. Ready to proceed. Captain Martinez, you understand this is likely a one-way trip? Chen asked. I understand, Ambassador. 3 million lives versus 9. That's an easy equation. The 3 courier ships loaded themselves with iron, nickel, and cobalt. Then they raced ahead of the cascade, positioning themselves between the darkness and the colony world. At the precise moment, they detonated their cargo, creating an explosion of exactly the materials the cascade preferred most. The effect was immediate. The cascade changed direction, flowing toward the explosion site like water finding a drain. It consumed the 3 ships in seconds, along with their crews. The colony world was saved. Ambassador Chen stood alone in her quarters that night, looking at the names. Captain Sarah Martinez, Lieutenant James Chen, Engineer Maria Petrov, 7 others. She memorized each one. The next day, She addressed the entire human fleet. Her face appeared on screens across 8,000 ships. "Yesterday, we lost 9 people," she said. "They volunteered knowing the risk. They calculated the odds and decided 3 million lives were worth 9. I won't tell you they died heroes, because that makes it sound noble and easy. It wasn't. They were terrified. They said goodbye to families. They did it anyway." She paused. "This is what we do. We see problems too big to solve and we solve them anyway. We face odds too steep to beat and we beat them anyway. We lose people, we mourn, and we keep working. Because someone has to fix it." Across the fleet, humans listened. Some cried, many thought of home. All of them stayed at their posts. On Concordia Prime, the speech was translated into 12 languages. The Galactic Council heard the words. Many couldn't comprehend the human willingness to sacrifice individuals for the collective good. Others wondered if perhaps this was what they'd lost over millennia of advancement. The Zephyri engineer who had been studying human methods spoke quietly to her colleague. "They mourn while working. They grieve while continuing. I don't understand how they do both simultaneously." "Perhaps that's their strength," her colleague replied. "They feel the weight of loss but don't let it stop them." Back at the perimeter, the redirection continued. More carefully now with triple-checked calculations. The path of sacrificial materials led the cascade steadily away from inhabited space, toward the empty regions between galactic arms. Captain Webb reviewed the casualty report. 9 names, the first deaths of the lockdown operation. He hoped they'd be the last, but he knew better. Dr. Tanaka refined her models, adding new safety margins. She personally checked every calculation now, haunted by the error that had cost 9 lives. Ambassador Chen prepared her report to Earth. 3 weeks into the operation, they'd contained the cascade and begun redirecting it. The cost: 9 lives, 3 ships, enormous resources. The result: not a single inhabited world lost. On day 26, something unexpected happened. The cascade stopped expanding entirely. It still moved, following the path humans provided, but it no longer grew. "It's not getting bigger," Tanaka reported, checking her instruments repeatedly. "The total mass is stable. It's moving, consuming what we give it, but not increasing in volume." "What does that mean?" Webb asked. "I think..." Tanaka hesitated. "I think it was hungry, and now it's full, or at least less hungry." Chen stared at the cascade on her display. "We're not fighting a weapon or a natural disaster. We're managing something alive, or something like alive," Tanaka agreed. "Something that consumes, moves, and responds to its environment." "Then let's make sure it responds the way we want," Chen said. "Continue the redirection. Let's lead this thing somewhere it can't hurt anyone." The human fleet worked on day after day, leading the cosmic anomaly away from civilization like the galaxy's strangest shepherds. And slowly, impossibly, it was working. 6 months after Ambassador Chen said, "Fine, I'll handle it," the Viridian Cascade reached its destination. The void of Kareth stretched between galactic arms, a massive empty region where stars were scarce and matter was sparse. It was the perfect place for something that consumed matter. Here, the cascade could exist without threatening civilization. On the Unity's bridge, Dr. Tanaka watched the final readings. "It's settling in. The movement patterns are stabilizing. I think it's found what it needed." "A home?" Captain Webb asked. "Maybe, or just a place with the right conditions." Tanaka pulled up her final analysis. "I've spent 6 months studying this thing. Every scan, every behavioral pattern, every feeding cycle. The Council was wrong. This isn't an anomaly. It's not some broken piece of the universe." Ambassador Chen joined them. "Then what is it?" "The best analogy I can give is a child, an infant dimensional entity that crossed into our reality and needed to eat." Tanaka displayed her data. It wasn't trying to destroy the galaxy. It was hungry. It consumed matter because that's what it does, what it needs to survive. When 12 species fought it, they were essentially hitting a hungry baby and wondering why it got worse. Webb rubbed his face. "We spent 6 months feeding a cosmic infant and teaching it where to eat," Tanaka added. "The cascade will stay in the void. It has everything it needs here." As it matures, if it matures, it might move on. Or it might stay. Either way, it won't threaten inhabited space anymore. Chen looked at the cascade through the view screen. The darkness pulsed gently now, almost peaceful. So what do we do with it? We watch it, Tanaka said. We learn from it. We make sure it stays healthy and contained. Basically, we run a nature preserve for a dimensional being. A cosmic zoo, Webb muttered. The galaxy is going to love that. But he was wrong. When Ambassador Chen presented her final report to the Galactic Council, the reactions were more complex than simple mockery. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from all 12 species attended, along with observers from dozens more. Chen stood before them all, exhausted but composed. The Viridian Cascade has been successfully contained and relocated to the void of Kareth. No inhabited systems were lost during the redirection phase. 47 star systems that were within the original lockdown zone are now clear and habitable again. She paused, pulling up a holographic display showing before and after maps. The Cascade is not an anomaly. It's a dimensional entity, possibly juvenile, that required matter energy to survive. When opposed, it became more aggressive. When provided with appropriate resources and guidance, it proved manageable. We've established a permanent monitoring station called Cascade Watch. Human personnel will maintain observation indefinitely. The Catharan representative spoke first. You're saying we spent 3 months fighting something that just needed to eat? Yes, Chen replied simply. Sometimes the most complex problems have simple solutions. Sometimes the impossible is just difficult. The Zephyri engineer who had observed the operation stood. Your methods were chaotic, inefficient. They defied standard protocols. Yet they worked. How? Chen smiled slightly. We saw 12 brilliant solutions that all failed. Each species tried to solve the problem using their greatest strength. Energy manipulation, perfect engineering, historical knowledge. But sometimes the answer isn't about being the smartest or the strongest. Sometimes it's about being willing to try something different when everything else fails. The librarian representative spoke. 4 voices merging. We have studied your operation extensively. Your coordination was remarkable despite having no central authority. Your adaptation to changing conditions was instantaneous. Your willingness to sacrifice for the collective good was, they paused, unprecedented in our records. We lost 9 people, Chen said quietly. Captain Sarah Martinez and 8 others gave their lives to save 3 million Raxians. I won't pretend it was easy or painless, but that's what we do. We see problems that need fixing, and we fix them. We lose people and we keep going. The council speaker stood. Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we acknowledge that humanity succeeded where we failed. We will honor the sacrifice of your 9 crew members. We are prepared to offer compensation, territory, or resources in recognition of your achievement. Chen pulled out a data pad. Actually, we've prepared an invoice. Murmurs filled the chamber. Several species perked up with interest. Chen projected the invoice onto the main display. 6 months of operation. 8,000 ships on rotation. Resource consumption, maintenance costs, personnel salaries, and death benefits for 9 families. The total comes to, she paused, a lot. Name your price, the speaker said. We don't want territory or resources, Chen replied. We want better communication protocols. This whole crisis could have been avoided if you'd contacted us earlier. We had ideas after reading your first failure reports, but you didn't ask because we're new, because our technology seems primitive, because we're just humans, she walked forward. So here's what we want. When the next crisis happens, and there will be a next crisis, the Council contacts all member species immediately. No assumptions about who can help. No dismissing ideas because they seem too simple. You thought 12 brilliant solutions should work. Sometimes one decent idea is better than 12 perfect ones that fail. The chamber was silent. That's it? The speaker asked. That's your price? That's our price, Chen confirmed. Oh, and funding for Cascade Watch. We're not maintaining that station out of pocket. The council agreed immediately. The new protocols were drafted within a week, and humanity's reputation changed overnight. No longer were they the youngest species, the primitive newcomers. They became the species you called when everyone else had given up. The species that looked at impossible problems and said, fine, I'll handle it. 3 weeks later, Captain Webb stood on the observation deck of Cascade Watch Station. The station orbited at the edge of the void. keeping constant watch over the entity they'd spent 6 months relocating. Dr. Tanaka joined him, carrying coffee. "Thought you could use this." "Thanks." Webb sipped the coffee and stared at the cascade. It pulsed gently, no longer hungry and aggressive. "Do you think it knows we helped it?" "I doubt it has that kind of awareness," Tanaka said. "But it's stable. Healthy in whatever way dimensional entities are healthy. We gave it what it needed, by trial and error." "That's how humans work," Tanaka smiled. "We're not the smartest species. We're not the strongest or most advanced, but we're stubborn. When everyone else quits, we're still there, trying things until something works." On Concordia Prime, the Galactic Council received a new alert, a different anomaly in a different sector, smaller than the cascade but growing. The council speaker looked at the report, then at the other representatives. "Should we contact the humans?" The Zephyr engineer who had studied human methods spoke up. "Let's analyze it ourselves first. Use human methods. Observation before opposition. Understanding before action." "How long do we try before calling them?" the Catharan asked. "A week," the speaker decided. "If we haven't made progress in a week, we call Ambassador Chen." The librarians recorded this decision with approval. The council was learning. On Cascade Watch Station, an alert sounded. Dr. Tanaka checked the readings and smiled. "What is it?" Webb asked. "Another anomaly. Different sector. The council is trying to handle it themselves." She pulled up the data they were receiving. "They're using our methods. Observation first, multiple approaches, adaptation. Will it work? Maybe. If it doesn't, they'll call." Tanaka returned to her coffee. "Either way, we've changed how the galaxy solves problems." Ambassador Chen received the same alert on Earth. She read the report, noted the council's approach, and felt satisfied. Then she returned to her current crisis, a trade dispute between 3 human colonies that needed mediation. Saving the galaxy was done. Now she had regular work to finish. In the void of Kareth, the Viridian Cascade existed peacefully. It had what it needed. It was no longer hungry, and somewhere in the darkness perhaps it dreamed in ways dimensional entities dream. On the edge of the galaxy, in a space station staffed by rotating human crews, monitors tracked every fluctuation. Dr. Tanaka's protocols ensured the cascade stayed healthy and contained. Captain Webb's security measures kept everyone safe. And if the cascade ever became a threat again, humanity would be ready. Because that's what humans did. They saw impossible problems and said, "Fine, I'll handle it." And then somehow they actually handled it. The phrase entered galactic culture as an idiom. When species faced unsolvable crises, they asked the question that had become famous across 12 civilizations. Should we contact the humans? And usually before they finished asking, a human ship was already on its way. Because somewhere some human had heard about the problem and decided that someone needed to fix it, and that someone might as well be them. The Great Galactic Lockdown ended 6 months after it began, but its lessons remained. Sometimes the newest voice has the best idea. Sometimes the simplest approach beats the most sophisticated. Sometimes the species everyone underestimates turns out to be the one that saves everyone else. The Galactic Council learned these lessons well. And humanity? Humanity just kept doing what they'd always done. Looking at impossible problems, rolling up their sleeves and getting to work. Because when everyone else says it can't be done, there's always one human somewhere who says, "Fine, I'll handle it." And then they do.